Hi, I'm Brent Keane.
And I'm Angela Siski. And so I'm just going to address the surveys. And when you look at the website, you're going to see two pie charts. And so what those pie charts consist of is the data that we collected from that ARCADS assessment. So the post-survey, or sorry, the pre-survey and the post-survey. And so in that first survey, the numbers at the side, what they basically mean is, the student has like a normal level or, not very anxious. And then we broke it into, a little more anxious, borderline, I am anxious. And then there's borderline clinical threshold where I am extremely anxious, and some students, again, beyond. And so when you're looking at those numbers, what was interesting is when in that first survey, we categorized 42% of students were feeling like, a healthy level of anxiety or, not very anxious. 35%, a little bit more, 4% were borderline, and 19% started moving beyond that borderline category. And so again, our big take home was in the second survey, the huge decrease in numbers, and we had that 19% disappeared. There was no students that were considered borderline clinical threshold. And that was just so amazing to see that.
And what we saw in the survey was also reflected in student journals. So when we went through those and looked at the questions that I had asked students and teased apart the reflections that students were sharing, we were seeing from beginning to end a general decrease in the amount of anxiety that they were showing in their writing.
And so what I think made the journals that much more valid was I was not able to be in the classroom with these students, so I didn't get to know them or have a rapport with them. When I'm reading the journals, I don't know who these kids are, but yet when we sat down together and I read them all, I was able to say, start categorizing the journals in the same categories that we had for the survey. And Brent could verify, yeah, that's what it looked like. That's right. And that was just showing how valid those journals were.
Yeah. And the last piece of that was the in-class observations. And what we found, like in the questions that I asked the students afterwards at the end of the survey and in the discussions, was that these were things that worked, and the students appreciated how they were able to cope better with them. So one of the questions that I asked, and it's reflected in the two graphs on the chart, talking about student buy-in to the three different activities: outdoor education, mindfulness, and online learning. And in all of them, there was overwhelming student support, first of all, for how good they were, and overwhelming student support for continuing them as a practice. So it was definitely a positive experience for this to be part of the students' year. I presume especially this year, but it's something I'm going to keep as a teacher as part of my tool chest and make it a regular part of my teaching. The other thing that we found, not related directly to our study, was that there were all kinds of spin-off benefits. So you've never had an experience, or I've never had an experience quite like this, where I'm doing a lockdown with the students, but they're practicing mindfulness during this lockdown. And it was amazing. I could not believe how calm, how quiet, how just focused, like all of the students were for the lockdown. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And there were other spin-offs as well. So whenever students were injured, and I certainly did have my share of students getting hurt over the course of 4 months, it was amazing that they had a tool they could access to regulate themselves and bring themselves back from panicked breathing to a calm state where they could deal with whatever we needed to deal with, whether it was getting a Band-Aid or getting an ice pack. It was remarkable. And so over and over again, there were little things along the way where students were able to self-regulate in a way that really helped them out. The student who was really stressed at the beginning of the year and who might, a couple of times a week find themselves in tears, doesn't now. They have tools and they can deal with it. So that was a real benefit that I found for so many of the students, just that ability to come back to a self-regulated, stable state where they're able to deal with whatever comes their way. Do you want to add anything to that?
I don't. No, that was thorough. And that's the stuff that we had talked about in our Thursday debriefs.
Yeah. Okay. Then we're done. Thanks.